I used to work at Sherwin-Williams. I was in management there for years. I've been in the paint business for 24 years, and I've been titled as a manager at 2 different paint companies. But with my injury that happened to me recently and being sidelined like I did and everything, I had to change careers. They would not take me back. And a lot of you know this story already, so I won't go a lot into it. But since this incident happened and trying to work through this and everything over the last year, I've asked myself many, many times, why did this happen to me? This situation. I didn't ask for it. I didn't plan on it. If I had, I would have prepared myself more for it, and I've been better prepared. But I didn't cause the situation, and I did not really ask for it. And since the incident happened, you have 2 trains of thought. You have people on one side of the fence saying, this is a new start for you. You can start over, a new career, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the other train of thought, the other camp. So, well, you're 50-some years old now. You've done this one career for years. You can't change. You can't get in anything else. You're too old. That's not the one I listen to. Anyway, you have 2 trains of thoughts. And anyway, over the year, I've had to kind of test my faith a lot. I've gotten back into reading my Bible a lot. I've read a lot of good Christian books on positive thinking and stuff, and really tried to saturate myself with positive thoughts and positive things, because you can go 2 ways in this. You can either let it bring you down and get negative and develop a negative attitude, or you can draw a positive attitude from it and try to learn and grow, which I've chose to do that. Now, with that being said, I don't know, a lot of you know Drew Brees, the Saints won the Super Bowl last year. Well, he's written a book, Come Back Strong. Well, out of that book, I read that. He's got a favorite saying that I've kind of taken on myself. It's called win one day at a time. Win one day at a time means you take one day at a time and you just focus about that day. You don't think about the past. You don't worry about the future. Which the Bible clearly states, the same thing. Think about the day, live for the day. So I've kind of had, in that mantra, I've kind of had to learn that. I've got that in my wallet. I've got that in my visor, in my car, and I read that every day. And I kind of, had to say this to myself all the time because of having to go through everything I've had to. Workers' comp is sending me back to school to be a pharmacy, like Tom said. Pharmacy is not what I chose, it's what they chose. They chose a career for me because they chose something that I could handle physically, something they would pay for me to go back to school to do. It wasn't what I choose. I would choose business or something else because that's what I've been doing for the last 20-some years. I feel comfortable doing that, but it's not my choice. But anyway, regardless of that, I am doing what they tell me to do, and I've been working with this for the last, almost 6 months now, going back to school. And with this whole thing about life not being fair, while I was preparing for this speech just last week, I had a math test, and I prepared for this thing. I studied, and I know I was going to ace this test. And when I took that test, I wound up making a C instead of an A. I went to the instructor after the test was over because I was so deflated and just so depressed about scoring so low that he went over the test and showed me it was simple little things that I knew how to do the formulas, and I knew I just misread it, just didn't pay attention. Just simple little things, that trip you up, and that's what happened. But it deflated me so much because I've been trying so hard. And I kept saying the same thing. Life is just not, it's not fair. Why am I going through this? And this whole negative issue came about again. But I've learned to just be more positive and focused, and to learn to try to deal with things. And when I was younger, I went through a terrible bout of this thing, growing up in a situation I did and stuff, as you are well aware of, that I had a lot of negative things going on back then that I rebelled against because I didn't think life was fair, and I just rebelled. I turned against the church. I turned against my faith and everything. For about 5 years, I was married, went through all this kind of stuff that everything had to offer. But after about 5 years of going through all this stuff and doing everything that was out there basically to do, I was divorced. I came and met Susan. I got involved with her church, and we got married and, of course, had a family. And when you're married, you have a family, you've got responsibilities, you don't have time to be worried about is life fair, if it's not fair, or whatever, because you're too busy living it. And I've done that for the last few years until what's happened to me. And once the injury sidelined me and put me down, I had plenty of time to think about things, plenty of time to, contemplate where I go from here and what I want to do. But there's been a lot of times, especially in the holiday seasons, you'll go somewhere like a party or to a group or something, and first thing people ask you is, what do you do for a living or a career, because we're all pegged in society about who we are. Your career, what your title is who you are. And when people ask me that, what do I tell them? I don't have a career. I don't have a job. And I get so tired of telling people my situation that a lot of times when people ask me that, I just go into the other room and just mellow out by myself because I just don't feel like I have anything to talk about when people talk about their careers, their job, their situation. It's not that I'm trying to be selfish or self-centered. It's just my situation's focused on my situation. And I don't mean to be that way, and I've learned that I've had to develop a more positive attitude and not dwell on my situation so much. And I've found that if I dwell on other people and think about helping others and focus on them more, then it takes it off me. And again, I feel like I've told myself many times that life isn't fair, but everybody's probably asked themselves that same question: why isn't it fair? But I didn't make the rules. But it brings to mind a story that happened years ago when I divorced the first time. I joined an organization through urban ministry called Contact. It was a volunteer organization where people would call up on the phone, and they would be like suicidal, problems with families, drugs, and all this. So I did that for a while, and I really enjoyed it. Felt like I was really helping a lot of people. And there was one situation where a young girl, a lady, called, and we hit it off pretty good. We talked, and she had a lot of problems with her family, her father, issues with her marriage, divorce and stuff. Anyway, we're not supposed to have anything to do with these people on a personal level, but I broke the rule. So a few months after her calling and talking, we got together, went out on a blind date. And this girl she was always talking about herself, and she was a very beautiful girl, but all she talked about the whole time we sat there and ate was herself and how when she goes somewhere to church or wherever, the guys just can't help but take their eyes, off me, blah, blah, blah. And she talked about herself the whole time. And we sat there, and I think I spent like $100 and some for the meal of the night, because I knew that this lady, was really into wanting a night. I wanted to impress her. And that was about 25, 30 years ago. And $100 for one meal, because I was living on beans and rice back then. I was hardly making it. And this girl just sat there, and she just ate like a little bird. I'm thinking to myself the whole time she's talking, I should eat this food. If you're not, I'm going to take a doggy back. So anyway, the point of the story is dealing with this young lady and everything, and her problems and stuff. I thought, this girl's really got it. So she's got all these problems. And then later on, I lost touch with the girl. A friend of mine ran into her. He knew the lady and said, a few years later, said, oh, yeah, I know her. She was about 25 years old. She had married a guy that was about 75. They were married for about 2 years, and he died. He left her a mansion and a few $1 million. I thought, my God, this isn't fair. She has all this going forward. Now she has this. And it kind of reminds me of that Anna Nicole story. Because even though this girl has money and she has all this going for her, I don't really believe she's happy because of all the issues that I knew dealing with her. But the point being is that, starting from point A, when I used to struggle with life not being fair, to where I'm at now, life isn't fair.